In Judaism, the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, is both a literal garden and a spiritual realm. It's where humanity first communed with God and where the righteous will dwell in the afterlife. But in the Hebrew telling, there's nuance. Adam and Eve aren't banished forever. The gates are closed, yes, but not destroyed. Eden becomes both memory and promise, a story of exile, but also of return. In Christianity, Eden becomes the site of the fall, a rupture so deep it explains every fracture of the human soul. The forbidden fruit becomes knowledge, knowledge becomes guilt, and guilt becomes the inheritance of all. But woven underneath that doctrine is a thread of longing, because Christianity also carries a promise of restoration. Eden lost, Eden regained. The tree of life reappears in Revelation, like a respawn. Same symbol, different map. In Islam, the story shifts slightly. Eden, Jannah, is described as a lush paradise, a garden of bliss. But the fall isn't a condemnation, it's a descent. Adam and Hawa, Eve, are not cursed but sent forth, not punished but prepared. And even in that departure, God remains near, guiding, forgiving, teaching. It's less a tragedy and more a movement, from innocence to awareness. A fall that's not about failure, but about purpose. And then there are the lesser-known versions, stories that whisper from the edges of canon. Some where the serpent isn't evil but curious, an agent of awakening. Some where Eve isn't deceived, but chooses knowledge consciously, bearing the cost of freedom for all who come after. Some where the fruit wasn't forbidden at all, just mistimed. Every retelling reveals a different face of Eden, a different angle of truth. And maybe that's the point. Maybe Eden itself needs to be retold, because it isn't a static story. It's a living mirror. Each culture, each generation, each person finds their reflection in it. To one, it's a loss. To another, an awakening. To another, a warning. And maybe, to you, it's just a question. If Eden was never a place, then what have we really lost? But before we go further, before we start decoding what those names and letters might mean, we need to pause on something most people forget. The story of Eden wasn't written in English. It wasn't born in Latin. It wasn't even a Western story to begin with. It was written in Hebrew, a language where words are not just symbols, they're structures of creation. Each letter, a universe. Each sound, a vibration. Each root, a constellation of meanings. In Hebrew, language is alive. You don't just speak it, you activate it. When the ancient scribes wrote Eden, they weren't describing dirt and trees. They were encoding consciousness. And that's what makes the story so slippery. You can't translate delight. You can only experience it. That's why every retelling, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, sounds both familiar and foreign. Each translation keeps some light but loses some warmth. Because Hebrew doesn't just say meaning, it embodies it. And when you start to unpack that, the story starts to breathe differently.